And welcome back to Coast to Coast. I'm George Norrie. Our main guest tonight, Dr. Carmen Boulter, is a professor at the University of Calgary, teaching in the Graduate Division of Educational Research. Carmen has been to 51 different countries to search for clues of lost matriarchal cultures from a golden age. Now, her quest has brought her to Egypt 23 times, where she has done extensive academic research and field work in the pyramid fields around the Great Pyramid. She has recently completed a groundbreaking documentary series called The Pyramid Code. We're going to be talking with her about her discoveries tonight. Here she is, Carmen Boulter. Carmen, how are you?
I'm great, thanks, George.
Good. It's good to have you on the program.
Delighted to be
23
here.
times in Egypt.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You know, my father was born there. He was born in Cairo.
That's right, yeah.
He's not been back since. Tell me, why 23 trips, Carmen?
Well, I've just had so much research to do, and one thing led to another. One research discovery brought on more field work, and I really had a lot of exploring to do. So
this has been a lifelong quest for you, hasn't it?
It certainly has.
Did you feel a calling when you were smaller?
Oh, absolutely. I started having past life recall when I was 6 years old, and I saw the headdresses and the necklaces on my cousin, actually, and I kind of brushed it away, and then it came back again, and I realized it probably wasn't a good idea to tell anyone. And then when I was 11 years old, I started looking through my father's books, and I found one on Edward Casey and another one that had pictures of the inside of the Great Pyramid and around the Sphinx. And I just had this impulse inside me, like, how close can you get to it? And I decided I wanted to go right away, or as soon as I could. And so I asked my mother where Egypt was, and she said, well, look it up in the atlas. And I looked it up, and I said, how do you get there? And she said, well, call the airlines. So I was making 25 cents an hour, and I found out the tickets were $1,400, and so I started calculating, and I was determined to get there the whole time. And I ended up going for the first time when I was 22. And a lot of things happened there that planted the seeds that just kept me going back.
Now you must have frequent flyer miles. You've got to, huh? That's a lot of. You know what's so remarkable, Carmen, is these events that affect us when we're children. Because I went through some similar things. Stay with us as we're adults. They form our careers and our paths, don't they?
Absolutely.
Truly amazing. Truly. Now, when you went to Egypt, whether it was the one time or the 23rd time, did you have help and assistance, or did you just go off on your own?
Oh, I was taken under the wing of a few different families. The first time I went, I was on a 14-month trip around the world, and I actually ended up meeting some people who invited me to come and stay with their family. And one of the young gentlemen, one of the sons, ended up taking me to the Great Pyramid, and he showed me how you can stay in there all afternoon, because in those days you used to go in on the hour every hour, and tours would stay in there for 10 minutes. And he said, if you just stay back, we can stay in here, and the next group that comes up, we'll hear them, we'll join in, look around. And we ended up staying in the Great Pyramid for 3.5 hours. And I took quite a few pictures, and there were apparitions and anomalies in the pictures. So I took my camera to a camera store and asked what was wrong with it, and they said, nothing. Nothing. And so all of a sudden I realized that my camera was picking up on energy fields inside there. And in subsequent trips, I ended up meeting the Fayed family, and they're connected to Dodi Fayed, Princess Diana's Dodi. And at the end of the British occupancy, all the land around the Giza Plateau was given to their grandfather. And so over the years, they really helped me a lot. They had property close into the plateau. Have you ever heard of the Champion?
I've not heard of the Champion, but the Fayed family, I think, did try to get us to Egypt a few years ago. Tell me about the Champion.
Okay, well, he was in charge of the plateau in the olden days when Zahi Hawass was a junior archaeologist who just had his bachelor's degree. And he was called the Champion because he used to run up the pyramid in 4 minutes and down in 3. Now, I've climbed the pyramid a couple of times, and it takes about 45 minutes to get up there. It's really quite the climb. And so he and his sons, again, actually, helped me do some things. And Champion had the keys to the pyramid at some point, and then over the years, Zahi Hawass got more and more power and more control. And but But anyway, it was the champion. One day he summoned me, and he sent a little boy to get me to come for tea the next day. And I went, and he said, "I'm going to take you to to Zahi." And I said, "Okay." And I didn't know what he was going to say. And he was very, very old at this time.
Yeah. And was he Egyptian champion?
Oh, definitely. He's a Fayed.
Okay. All right.
Hefnawi Fayed.
Okay.
And so we got there, and I was, very curious about being in the Department of Antiquities and meeting Zahi and all of that. But I really didn't know what our purpose was or why he felt so determined to bring me there. And so Zahi says, "What do you want?" And he says, "Well, you know who I was to you. I was your boss, and now you're in charge of everything. And it won't be long before I pass, and I have a favor to ask of you." And Zahi said, "What?" And Champion said, "Well, anything she asks you, I want you to say yes." And so that led to years of Zahi honoring that and saying yes to me when I asked for permission to do certain things. So,
well, and let me tell you, Carmen, that is a benefit that you just can't find anywhere.
That's right.
I mean, because he is tough. We've had him on the program before.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, you know how he believes that everything's Egyptian, regardless of the theories we've all had. Mm-hmm. Everything's Egyptian. And he doesn't, he's so focused on that, he doesn't want to hear anything outside of that.
Well, he asked me if I was a New Ager and, what my profile was and all of that. But he did honor it, and I feel really good about it.
Well, we're going to get your take on how you think the pyramids were built. Now, tell me about your research when you were in Egypt. How did you do it?
Okay. Well, I started out with the Canadian Embassy in Cairo and the Egyptian Embassy in Ottawa, and I had written a manuscript, second one after my book, Angels and Archetypes, or I was in the process of writing it. And I wanted to go into the archives of the National Museum and the Cairo University Faculty of Archaeology Rare Books Library, and then the American University of Cairo Library. And so it was a lot of paperwork, and I finally got in there. And when I was walking around on Cairo University campus, of course, I was the only woman who didn't have my hair covered, but I spent a whole summer, because of all the Islamic energy and everything else, but I spent a whole summer being allowed to go into this Rare Books Library, and it had all of the field notes of anyone who had ever done research on the Giza Plateau. So the books were in German, French, English, and Arabic. Of course, there was no filing system. There were just women who would bring me tea and piles of books and put them on the table, and there was big fans going because it was in the summer, and the pages were dark brown because they had, been there because they're so old.
Yeah.
And I just started taking notes, and I found all kinds of interesting things in there. And they had to take records of how many barrels of sand had been removed and how many children and people had worked on the plateau in any given day, and actually what they found. And so even in the National Museum archives, there was some interesting things. And, of course, you have to be an archaeology student usually to get in there, or some kind of researcher. So it was very good to start or to do that part with the book research. But then later I wanted to do more field work and spent a lot of time on the Giza Plateau. And it wasn't very interesting to me to be there when the public was there, so I always wanted to go on the plateau after it closed. And so I'd spend up to 4 months in Egypt at a time and go on the plateau every night when it closed. And so that's how I started to gather a lot of the data.
When you're standing next to the Great Pyramid, maybe on the outside looking up it as far as you could see, what's it like? What's the feeling?
Well, first of all, it's huge. It's 2.3 million stones, and it covers several acres. And so however you see it from a picture, we're about 2 stones high. And,
yeah.
The rest of it's there. But what's also interesting is that when you're standing close to it, if you look across the sides of it, it's actually concave. And I'm told that if it had been flat, it would look like it was inflated somehow. And so it's fascinating. It's kind of like the columns in Greece, where the architecture of them is actually an optical illusion.
So they even understood that.
Oh, there's so much they understood. And in investigations now, and looking at Starry Night Pro and typing in various planets and stuff, that they knew a lot. And I'm still fascinated with how they put it together. I just had a deck put in, and the stones just on a 280 square foot paving stones, everything's crooked. And when you think, like we can't build anything square today.
Yeah.
And when you think how precise it is, it's mind-boggling. And you can't put a razor blade between